Toby, you crazy. Toby, you crazy. Toby, you crazy. Toby, you crazy. Bougiewild, 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 Bougiewild. I said the universe gave it to me. I said the universe gave it to me. Bougiewild, 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 Bougiewild. I said the universe gave it to me. I said the universe gave it to me. Bougiewild can't be boxed. I'm free to be me. I'm living life, creating legacy. I'm living my dream. They call me extra. They say I'm doing too much. I'm just bougie wild. Cause I'm classy with some style. Bougie wild, 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 bougie wild. I said the universe gave it to me. I said the universe gave it to me. Bougie wild, 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 bougie wild. I said the universe gave it to me. I said the universe gave it to me. I'm rocking my own label. I'm wearing my own brand. See, y'all don't understand.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Transparent Table Talk. I am your host, Bougie Wow. Transparent Table Talk is a platform where people are willing to speak about their personal life from a humble, transparent, and vulnerable place. The purpose of the show is to bring awareness to topics society does not discuss that have people suffering in silence due to shame or blame. The vision is to create a place for people to have conversations without fear of judgment. This is something that was created by Bougiewild because this is these are the type of conversations I wish someone would have had with me. And the goal is to inspire and empower to show people that we have a choice to live a happy life. The mission is to heal the hurt world by showing that we all go through things and we have a choice to be reborn and live in the spirit. Let's introduce tonight's guest, Miss Catherine BERRA. Catherine is an avid author, poet, exquisite, and world traveler, a dedicated mother and friend, and true lover of nature. She holds a BA in Communication Business Management from Metropolitan State University in Denver and an Animals and Human Health graduate certification from the University of Denver. For more than 20 years, her career in Washington, D.C. revolved around senior level logistical and management support to a U.S. ambassador, philanthropist, and technical writing at the U.S. Department of State. Upon her return to Colorado in 2014, she resumed her passion for writing and giving back to the world. She is the founder of Beard LLC, and Equine Assist Confidence Building Activities Program. Catherine resides in Littleton, Colorado, is the proud mother of Alexander Assis, and relishes her role as a caregiver for her rescue horse, Dancer. Let's welcome our guest to the show.
Hello. How are you?
Hi, Catherine. How are
I'm
you
doing
doing
I'm
today?
doing real well. It's chilly. I'm in Colorado, so uh, it's snowing. It was 70 degrees yesterday. Now it's snowing today. So
So, welcome to Transparent Table Talk.
thank you.
Um, I do share with the guests that this is a show where our guests get to pick the topic of the show because it's about us discussing the topics that, as stated, they've dealt with or they're dealing with. So
Sure.
tonight is the stigma of women dating over 50. So please tell me, Miss Catherine, what brought you to Transparent Table Talk?
Well,
What
I
is
just
this
like
about?
your spirit and your energy. I watched some of your podcasts, and I just think it's important to talk about everything, and I
Yes.
think that I'm an author. So I wrote a book last year. It's a
Mm,
comedy book, basically about online dating for older people.
mm,
And I've just learned so much through engaging on these podcasts and things with other people about the stigma of it in general about dating, but just the human condition as it stands right now, and just the relationships since COVID, and how
mhm,
we are dealing with relationships since COVID. And also just the fact that people, I think, are afraid to commit. I mean, I think the term relationship nowadays, even the dating concept of it with the swiping and all that, it's just become very autonomous and very impersonal.
mm,
So I believe that a lot of people feel like they're the only one in that boat of
mm,
being, thinking it's a crazy, crazy situation. And my book basically is about, and again, my book is called These Stories Are True, I Shit You Not. It's a humorous
mhm,
look at online dating for older humans. But what has happened since I wrote the book is I got on TikTok, and I
mhm.
started passively marketing the book. But then I mean, one of my videos has 1 million views because people can relate to it. And I think
Right.
that's what's so interesting is that since COVID, anybody, not just people over 50, but in general, I think we're having trouble socializing the way we used to. Things have changed, and people sometimes feel like they're alone in their thought process about dating and socializing.
Yeah, I can relate. I divorced in 2019, and then COVID happened.
Mm,
And since we've been back outside, I'm just gonna make it plain. I realized a lot of dating is done on the social media sites, and I've never been on a social media site,
right.
but it was very hard for me. And I was wondering, like, how do people be coming up with these new boyfriends? And
I
I didn't realize that dating on the internet was the new thing. So
Mhm.
for me, I'm 45, and I can relate to you saying that that the dating thing is something we don't want to commit to. I can relate over there as well.
Right,
Speaking
right.
from a humble place, because we are at that place where at 45, 50, we really just getting to know ourselves. So to then go out there and date, you really feeling and just getting to know yourself, getting to know the other individual. So the commitment is hard to do at this age because it's like I'm just really growing up and figuring out who I am.
True.
So
And it's exhausting. I think my book, the reason I wrote it was because I was a single mom for a long time. And then
mm,
my son went off to college. And then I thought, okay, I'll try it. Right.
mm,
And it was absurd. I mean, it was ludicrous. Some of the things that happened to me on these dates, I was like,
mm,
am I the only one this happens to? Do I have like a sign on my head that says,
right.
act like an idiot on my. So it was years and years later that, and I had good dates too. I'm not saying all of them were bad, but finally during COVID, a friend of mine who I told these stories to over and over again, she said, you have to write a book. No one is going to believe this. And I
Mm,
said, I don't want people to know, right? Because I thought, what is going on with us? Like, why are
mhm.
people acting like this on
Right,
as adults?
right.
We're not 20 years old. So during COVID, I had, we all had a lot of downtime. So she finally convinced me to put it together. And she actually reminded me of some dates I'd been on that I didn't want to remember, and so I put it all together. And what's been amazing about it is, again, I always thought it was just me. I thought, oh my gosh, maybe I'm giving off some weird vibe, right? But it's not just me. And like I said, so here's the book right here. It's called These Stories Are True, I Shit You Not. But it's on Amazon, but it's interesting because one of my videos I did on TikTok about one of the chapters in my book. So you know how you do those little 7-second videos? I did one last February and it has over 1 million views and 20,000 comments. And I mean, it's like, you can't believe how many people can relate to the same situation. So I think that's one thing post-COVID that I'm really glad about with the book. I mean, I didn't write it to make $1 million, but what's really been fascinating about it is relating to other people, you know, and letting people know they're not alone in this weird situation. And I think online dating, the social, you know, part of that online is it's very impersonal. You know, people at all ages can be ghosted. People at all ages can have weird situations, you know, and it's true. And I mean, I had some of the weirdest dates and I'm in my 50s, you know, so it's like, what is going on, you know? So I think that's been one of the benefits of doing it. And I think that's one thing that is important for all of us is just to know that we're not alone, you know, and in that in that whole trial and error process of socializing. And I think people struggled during COVID, you know, I think it was very isolating. You know, my mother died during COVID. She had a stroke in February of 2020. March, things shut down completely. So she was in ICU and we didn't get to see her move from ICU to rehab. And then after rehab, we had to move her into another assisted living facility. And I didn't see my mother the last 6 months of her life in person. I didn't get to hold her hand. I didn't get to hug her. We were not allowed in the facility. So again, that whole couple years that we've had, I just think that people have really struggled with a lot of different parts of COVID and post-COVID, and the social part of our lives has definitely changed.
I apologize about that. I had you on mute because my notifications
That's
were
okay.
coming. But you just shared something new with, you know, with me because, like I said, I never experienced the online dating. I can't relate to what it would be like just going online, scrolling down, finding somebody saying, let's meet up. I just never got into it. So, you know, what you're sharing with me, I'm like, wow, you know, never thought about it from that standpoint that you know, meeting so many different people. I just sat in the house and waited till somebody found me.
Oh, yeah. Well, and I've tried to meet people through friends, you know, but you also get set in your ways, you know, and you're at the stage, like you said, you're kind of just starting to learn about yourself. And honestly, it's such a different world. I want to say, well, I had 3, now just 2 friends who actually pay their ex-husband's alimony because they were the breadwinner. So it's just like a completely different world of, you know, I don't think men know really how to be men anymore, you know. They, again, one of my friends said to me, you know, he said, I don't know if I should open the door for a woman because they'll yell at me, or if I don't open the door for a woman, they'll yell at me. You know what I mean? So it's just a very strange time to try to figure out like the roles and the defined this and that, you know, even going to dinner, who pays for dinner, that sort of thing. And so it's just tricky. And again, but when we're independent women and we know what we want, we know it's not necessarily that we want to be alone, but we don't want to compromise to a point of, you know, lessening ourselves. So I think that's also one of the parts of the conflict is that we want to be social, we want to have a relationship, but we don't want to compromise how far we've come. So, you know, at this stage.
Let me be, I can be transparent with what you're saying for the audience. What she's saying is we want the same energy that we're bringing as a woman, whether that is financially, emotionally, spiritually, and you don't want to compromise those values. You don't want to compromise what it is that you stand for as your mission in life, your values, your purpose is to who you are. And it is very difficult when you are an independent woman and you are out here and you know who you are to come across a guy that know. And what I realized and I'm just speaking from the dates I did go on, it was like, how when we were children and we just were more mature than the little boys, it's like it's the same way. And it's very rare to find a guy that's on your level. So, I can relate to you from that standpoint of dating out here, being a woman. I'm over 40, but just knowing who I am and what my values are, and that I'm valuable.
Right.
So,
Right. And again,
mhm.
I wrote the book as a comedy book,
Right.
because the stories
Mhm.
are pretty crazy.
That's right.
But at the same time, the purpose wasn't to insult men. It was because some of the
Right.
stories in my book are also about stories men told me. Like they've
Right.
told me the craziest stories about women that have acted, you know, weirdly on their dates. But it was written as a comedy and a humor book. But at the same time, since I've written the book and been in contact with so many other people and engaged with so many other people, it's fascinating to me how many of us go through this um, and are okay being alone for the time being. I think it's important to just honor your limits and honor yourself and know what you want and what you don't want. So, but I think too that people are just tired. It's exhausting going on dates. It's exhausting trying to put yourself out there, and it's like reading your resume every time you go out, and it's
I can relate because I went celibate. I went celibate 2 years after I divorced. I was just like, I couldn't do it. I had to work on me. I had to work on me, and you spend that time and realize everything I was looking in the world or in a man or whatever. I had to find it in me,
Mhm.
and by doing that, it's from my experience. Like I said, he had to find me because I ain't looking for one.
Right. Well, that's smart too, because I think that's one of the
Mhm.
things I've learned also from writing this book is that I'm perfectly fine being where I am. And until someone
Mhm.
comes along that I want to compromise for, I'm not going to do it. I mean, and there are just women too that really, in my experience doing this book, is they've lowered the bar quite a bit. You used to always
Mhm.
hear about these
And you're
guys that were
told that it's
players.
like you're told that when you know those values and you know what those attributes you are looking for in a man, it's very hard to even talk to a woman about it once you have established what it is you want, because the social norm of it is a lot of women is just happy to have a man.
Right.
Instead of just getting to know who you are and what it is you want, and living in a true high frequency energy where you just saying, this is what I want. I know who I am. I know my value. And it's very difficult being in that position because
Right.
I've been there, and like I had to wait on him to find me.
Right. Well, it's a struggle too, because just like you said, why do you think women do that? I mean, I have friends who do not like to be alone. They will
But
not be
I mean,
alone.
it's just a thing, I guess, because we are nurturers. I guess because we are nurturers and we just don't like to be alone. And so, I mean, even with us discussing that aspect of and talking about the stigma of women dating over 50 not wanting to be by themselves, because it once you just jump from one thing to another, you constantly getting into unhealthy patterns of behavior rather than just stopping. And I
Mhm.
see that on both sides. It's just a lot of hurt people out here in the world who just never stop to deal with themselves. And that's
Right.
why I'm talking about things the way I do, from a humble, transparent, and a vulnerable place, because that's what's going on. Like, we are intelligent people. We go out here, we get good jobs, we get degrees, we own businesses, but when it comes to healthy relationships, we're dumbasses. It's like nobody even talking about what constitute a healthy relationship. Because for one thing, I can't be myself with you. I'm gonna send in a representative. I'm not gonna come and just say this is me. So because we're out here seeking validation and fearing rejection, that's why we're constantly finding people that's just dealing with chaotic relationships because they
Yeah.
don't know who they are.
Right.
But
I,
nobody's
I mean,
talking
I
to
have
their
a friend,
behavior.
I have a friend who was married for 18 years and it was a very toxic situation. And
Mhm.
she left him, He was cheating on her, so she starts dating right away. Like right away, she gets before she's even signed the papers.
Right.
Right online, dates 3 guys, sleeping with them already, and I was like, "Oh my god, what are you doing?" And literally, she starts seeing one of them, ends up cheating on the new boyfriend with her ex-husband, who's still cheating on her. They both break up with the people they're having affairs with, and then they got divorced, but then they got back together. And I'm like, because they didn't want to focus on, like you said, healing and getting to know themselves. That was so comfortable for them. That toxic situation was so
It's the
comfortable.
norm. It's what's normal. And nobody's talking about that from a standpoint of healthy relationships. And that's why I make it known to say healthy relationships matter, but it's not something we're talking about in
Right.
society to where we can even express ourselves because we are so attached to our social norms and our cultural norms that we can't be our true authentic self because again we fear rejection and we have a need to fit in, like we have conformed and not even living ourselves with that fear of how somebody will talk about me. They gonna talk about us, and that's it's just a reality. But being my original self, that's something society takes from us, and
Right.
we are suffering as a result, and it shows in our relationship
Yes, it
because
does.
when you love yourself, baby, you don't have time. Girl, I would go in a meditative state before I deal with bullshit. I
Mm-hmm.
know life is beautiful,
Right.
and I'm just there, and it. I don't. I'm at that place where I know the power in my choice, and I got a choice to where I deal with. And I'm telling you, we have to work on ourselves and let speak what it is you want, because life and death lies in the power of the tongue.
Right.
And you find
That's true. And interestingly enough, when I reread my book and I look at the stories, because it's a self-published book. So there are little mistakes and stuff. So I've gone through and I've re-edited. But what I do is I get almost this form of PTSD. It's like, I don't want to read these stories because I don't want to admit that I actually dealt with this and I didn't say no fast enough, or I didn't leave the date fast enough, or I didn't tell this guy he was a ding dong fast enough. But that was my own personal journey. But like you're just saying, that's so true. You have to be true to yourself, and you have to stand up for yourself, and it's okay. I think that
it's
you're
okay.
so 100%
It's
right
the
about,
best feeling
you
in the
know,
world. It's the
yeah.
best feeling it's the best feeling in the world. And I tell people because look, I am a teenage mom, a high school dropout. I had my first baby at 15. All I knew was to do was take care of people. All my
Mhm.
whole life, all I known was taking care of other people, just making sure everybody else is okay. And when I had my spiritual awakening, because that's what transparent table talk came from, me having my spiritual awakening, realizing that, oh my God, in life we've been conditioned and we be so caught up with the social norm and not even realizing that we're on airplane mode and just living this life chaos, discord, conflict, irritation, aggravation, frustration. And because it's our norm, we don't even understand that what was conditioned in us really didn't have nothing to do with us as a child or whatever. And that it's our responsibility to the Holy Spirit in us, through us, as us to become the best version of what it is we want. Like be real with ourselves as it pertains to being in line with the little voice in our head that nobody hears and standing true in setting, like I said, those boundaries, those values for who you are, because at the end of the day, we could have degrees, we could have nice cars, careers, or whatever. If our mind is not aligned with who we are and living our truth sets us free. And that's why I talk about life from a humble, transparent, and vulnerable place, because I discovered this. And just by discovering it and healing from things that I was born into that happened to me, or what I allowed to happen, like you said, dealing with them regrets. I take my pain and turn it into purpose, because it damn near drove me crazy when I realized that I was dysfunctional and I dealt with a lot of things, and just setting those boundaries was a very lonely process. Starting to love myself when the Holy Spirit said, Yolanda, what you've been giving everybody else, give yourself. It was like everybody said, you're the problem, you're the problem. So one day I said, I am the problem. I'm not dealing with it no more.
Right.
I'm moved now. I'm love, joy, peace, and laughter. because
True
being
intention, right? Right.
um,
That's brilliant. It's brilliant. I mean, it's true intention, and that's
yes,
brilliant. Yeah.
intention, living intention, right,
Yeah.
right,
Hmm.
living intentional. I
Yeah.
have a choice. I know who I am. I have a responsibility to the Holy Spirit. I'm not operating with no low energies and all of that. And that's what's happening in our society. And that's what's affecting dating, because a lot of us get in relationships and stuff young because we enter the world seeking validation and need to fit in. And then we go do what the world tell us to do rather than just living our true authentic self. So that's why we deal with so many dysfunctional relationships, because we don't even know who we are. And I
True.
experienced it, and it's something I speak about.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's 100% true. And I think too, what do they say? Fill your own self up, fill your own cup
Right,
up,
before you
and let
get before you
everybody else enjoy the leftovers or what flows
right,
over. Like,
what
you have to,
flows over.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yep, I agree with that completely. So, again, I think that this happens all ages of people. I think
Right.
that I feel bad for the younger like my son is 30, so um, his whole generation of growing up, and it's when social media first started when he was in about fifth
Mhm.
grade, I think. And
Mhm.
I think that has just affected that these kids so much, just the comparative reality, the false reality of what they're comparing themselves
Oh
to.
my God.
um,
Mhm.
and again, it's really hard to differentiate, I think, for a lot of those younger people to know that, when I was growing up, we didn't have cell phones or you know what I'm saying? It's like we didn't
We
have
didn't
that.
see all the pressure that they have. So much pressure. Like we had that peer pressure. We
Yes.
had that peer pressure. Because the reality is society conditioned us to go out here and compete and condemn. Because even in the schoolhouse, when they gave all of us the same curriculum, and then they would have award shows after the 6 or the 9 weeks and recognize who got the A's and who got the B's. You created my mind to compare myself. You created my mind, well, you program my mind. You program my mind to compare myself with other people rather than recognizing the gifts in me.
Right.
And that's what's really going on with the social media, because they're really taking away from their true, authentic version of themselves. Because, like you said, we didn't see all of that, especially glitz and glamour. We saw on TV and award show when we
Right.
we see
Right.
some superstars, but
Right.
all these superstar lifestyles and all of that. And that's why, again, I speak from a humble, transparent, and vulnerable place, because I tell people I did the worldly way. I compare, competed, condemn the clothes, the shoes. I did it. Like, I don't have a sad story of being a teenage mother, high school dropout. I got out there and I got it. Like, I don't have no shame, no blame. I thank God for where I am today. And that's the reason why I'm speaking so loud and so bold about this, because I went through this worldly way of stuff, and I see so many people suffering, and we just suffering because we don't even know who we are.
It's true. And it's a beautiful thing that you're doing, because it's hard to really help people understand that they're not alone in what they're thinking. And I think what
Right,
you're saying is very unique in that you're saying that it isn't spoken about enough. Like you
right.
are
Stop talking about
really
it.
right on the money when you say we need to speak about that. We are
Right.
each and every one of us unique. And
We
we
are.
there's societal norms and all that, but I
Right.
think that is the benefit of what you're doing in speaking, is that we are all unique and we all have our own
Mhm.
gifts and our own way. And so we do have to follow the rules and the guidelines and, get through, culturally and societal and all that. But I do think that's so important to spread
Stay
that
true to
message
who you
because,
are.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm. Stay true. And the thing about it is, we don't even know. We
Hmm.
live a life. I'm saying, from speaking about life from a humble, transparent, and a vulnerable place, and just my awareness now. Like, I've studied this thing, right? And it's a from a religious standpoint, from a cultural standpoint, economic standpoint, it's just all aspects of the conditioning. That part we're not talking about, because the person we're born into, just think about a baby. Think about how free a child is when they little, and how able they just express themselves. They don't have no hidden agenda. They have no ill will. They have no malice, and they're free. But by the time we become young teenagers or whatever, we say, no, don't do that. You're loud. You laugh like this. And to where it's just ripping away who we are. So now just walking around as beings, let me get my charger, as beings not even knowing who we are. And so it causes us to be in dysfunctional relationships and stuff because we don't even like ourselves. We don't even know ourselves. We got this whole frustrating thing. We going against the spirit that's in us, through us, as us, not even understanding to train that, to be in tune with it, to face your fears, doubts, and insecurities. Those are the things that we have to do to become whole within ourselves and realize that we have a responsibility to the energy. That's just where I'm in with, like, and understanding like the whole spiritual law, the spirit, the law.
Exactly. And interestingly, too, I mean, you probably went through the same thing when you were raising your children or child, or I don't know if you have one or two. I have one. But, along the way, I think I feel like I've made so many, not mistakes, but I did the best I could because he hasn't seen his dad since he was 12 and he's 30. So, you do the best you can. But then you get to this point where we are having this sort of awakening, and it's like, oh my gosh, this is what I've learned now. And it's to transcribe that or to mit that back to your adult children or grown children, to say, look, this is what I'm learning now. This is what I want to express to you now. I might not have done 100% the right thing when, I was stressed out working a full-time job and, I was in charge of the house and everything else. But I think just that concept of learning and realization at this stage in our lives and being able to transfer that somehow to our kids and let them know, look, we're always growing, we're always learning, we're always educating, we're always trying to better ourselves. So I think that's also a great example that you are giving, that, we might have started out here, but we're now here. So you always are learning and expanding yourself. And that's brilliant. Also, I think that's a great message. Yeah.
And as far as I have the conversations with adults about it, to say from my own life, I want people to see through me like a glass of water, that I made a choice to live good, feel good, do good, know good, recognize the good, and become addicted to the good, because everybody don't make it. Like, I have a 30-year-old son that's angry at me. I had him at 15. A lot of stuff I did that I didn't know better. Watching my mom, I had to be dysfunctional having a baby at 15 years old. But this is a 40-something-year-old lady now who has experienced the world and understand who I am. But my whole thing is why we were not told as a child that, especially everybody got their own religion or whatever. But hey, Yolanda, the whole spiritual or your being is, you're going to go through things in life. Your mother may disappoint you, your father, you may get violated from somebody in the world, somebody in the family, embarrassed. All of these things can happen to you, especially as a child, because we're so vulnerable as children. But don't allow that to take your whole world. And I see a lot of people out here that just be living dysfunctional. I got a 30-year-old son. He's so angry, and I just pray for him. And but they be living dysfunctional because they be holding on to it. And that's what I'm saying. We have a choice to die to that, because that's the flesh that had nothing to do with us. And that's what it means to die to the flesh and become spiritual, because now I'm spiritual. I'm aware of the sin in the world that it had nothing to do with me. And now I'm going to go out here to train my brain to live good, feel good, do good, know good, recognize the good, because all that is God is good. That's what I'm like, why nobody didn't talk about it like that?
Exactly. But you know what? It's good that you're doing it now. I mean, it's never too late. You know what I'm saying? And I think that, in fact, after this, I'm going to call my son, because he's 30 and he's always been angry. He's angry because his dad left him, whatever. But I think that's a great message to share with him, that, look, whatever you just said, everything, I'm at this place now, but I'm elevating myself and I'm trying more, right? I mean, that's all we can do. And I have been trying to get to the bottom of his anger for a long time. And, we do our best as moms, and it's very difficult. So I give you kudos for trying too, but I have a son that's pretty much in the same mental place.
Tell your son this when you talk to him.
Pardon me?
Tell your son this. I want you to ask your son this when you talk to him. Say, if somebody gave you 100 acres of land for free, but the land had old cars, abandoned houses, mangy dogs, bags of trash, and the grass had been cut in 50 years, would you take the land? He's about gonna say yes, right? And then we're gonna ask him, what you gonna do with the land? The first thing he's gonna say, I'm gonna clean it up. So you then tell him he got 100 acres of land. He gonna be like, what you tell my mom? Tell him it's your mind. And when you realize you had the land, it had old bags of trash, which is, hurt. It had abandoned cars, which is fear. Abandoned houses, doubt. Mangy dogs, insecurity. All these weeds and stuff is just chaos, discord, conflict, irritation, aggravation, frustration. So you got this beautiful land, but you don't know that you have to just clean it up. And when you get ready to clean up 100 acres, you know it's going to take some time. So you got to get out there every day and do the work.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I love that. That's a good analogy.
Yeah. And that's what I want to help people with. So if you even want me to talk to him, I'll tell him about my life. Like I said, I went out and got pregnant because I felt like my mom didn't love me. And I went and got pregnant. And I'm like, I thank God I didn't go put no needle in my arm. And then the crazy thing is, my son that I went called myself gonna have a baby for, because I feel like my mom did. Baby. Girl, he can't stand me. He mad. So I just can't do nothing but pray for him and now talk about these things. That's the reason why I'm talking about it, because I'm like, Lord, why nobody didn't talk about this stuff?
Yeah. So I mean, even the topic of the stigma of dating after 50, I think you have to clean up that mess too, in a way that you have to. You have these options, you have these opportunities, and you just have to really kind of weed through what you want, what you don't want. And there's a lot of trash out there, I hate to say, but there's a lot of good people too.
They still hurt and they have not healed and been. I'm telling you, it's a world of hurt people.
Yeah, and hurt people. So
because
I think
at 50 years old, you're supposed to know who you are, to where if we meet you and we like you and you got to go now, we'll get married in 30 days.
That's so true, but it doesn't work like that. That's what's so funny.
Right.
I think everyone's
don't nobody know who they are. But just think now, 50 years old, I'm 40 something, and I tell guys I ain't no girlfriend. I'm too old to be a girl.
Yeah.
You gonna say I ain't nothing until you marry me, because I ain't no girl.
Yeah, I don't even know if I want to get married again. Now I think about it, I'm thinking, what's the point? I mean, I don't know. We'll see.
Friend, somebody you can, get along with, and life is good. Two healthy people to bring joy. Yeah, joy.
Yeah. And as nurturing people, as a single mom for so long, it's like, I don't want to take care of anybody else, except for me. So, at this stage, men, sometimes their health starts getting a little wonky, but, I don't want to take care of that way. You know what I'm saying? I want someone that's active and fun and spiritual and a good person. So yeah, there's all sorts of options, I'm sure, but it's just tricky. It's tricky in this day and age. And, I'm an optimist though. So
yeah. Well, I have really enjoyed this conversation.
Me too.
And this is what Transparent Table Talk is all about, for us to be able to talk about life with no judgment and just really just talk about it from that transparent place, to where we can show people through our own life experiences that we all going through the same stuff. Yeah. We are, and we facing these things, and then we can't even have a conversation about it. They be taboo topics, and it's hidden. So we dealing with these little voices in our head that nobody hears, that nobody want to talk about, because and so we are now talking about it and transparent.
That's true. That's true. And it's all good. It's good to talk about it too. And I think that's what's great about podcasts too, because people sometimes find a topic and they can just really relate, and it helps them move through some of their own issues and maybe not feel so alone in the world,
Right. Right. We are talking more as a society with the podcast. Like you said, it's giving us the platform that if you got something on your heart and you are ready to get that message out, you can.
That's
You
right.
really can.
That's right.
Well, thank you so much for being a guest. I really enjoyed this conversation. Like
Me too.
you and I had a conversation because sometimes people be just giving me a lecture and I say I'm gonna have to put that in the disclosure, but I want to have a conversation.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
that's the whole purpose of it for us to be able to have dialogue and
Right.
share from a
And now my
transparent.
son's going to learn all about his 100 acres. So
Yes, yes.
good
Yeah,
thing.
he got 100 acres. And
Yes.
then he can just think when he cleaned up his land, he can go plant him some roses and some tulips and daisies. He could plant them some put them a field of vegetables and
Yep.
crop, put them some cows on it.
Yep.
Do whatever you
Absolutely.
want to do. Build him a house.
I love that. I love that for anybody in general. That's a
Yeah.
good, yeah.
That's what God showed me to share with people, and I realized it. I said, I'm not gonna allow it to steal my love, joy, peace, and laughter,
Yep.
because it has to do with self. And the hardest thing I ever had to do was when I dealt with myself, and I discovered this, and I've been born again. I'm telling you, my sister called me and asked me, was I dying? She said, girl, you died. You done changed. I said, girl, I died to the flesh.
Mm.
A lie. I ain't did it. And I'm telling people, we all go through it. We battle with what was conditioning us versus what we want to become. And then we have this whole spiritual war. You train it. Like I tell folks, if I give you my address right now and you put it in your GPS and you follow the instructions, you're gonna pull up in my house. You're gonna call me and say, Yolanda, I'm outside in the driveway. That's all it is by following the spiritual law of things.
True.
It's a practice.
Yeah.
Because the devil a lie.
Yeah, that's
We
for
can't
darn
let the
sure.
devil take our babies because, I got one, and like I said, I pray for him, I talk to him, and that's why I'm out here talking about it, because I said everybody don't make it, and it could have been me.
Hmm. And look at us, we're both from different places, but we're going through the same thing with our sons. So,
Right.
again, that's my whole point. It's like we are all dealing with the same things in different ways, right? So I think that's relatable. And I think it's great to know that you are how you're dealing with it, right? Because
Yeah.
sometimes I just feel like, oh my God, I'm such a failure. But at the same time, I've done a lot to try
Mm.
to rectify the situation. But you've just given me some great advice, so I'm going to take it. And yeah.
And I'm telling you, I had to give my son back to God because I had a lot of guilt. I had a lot of shame. And then I was like, you know what? I got to start speaking about it. And so, you know, writing a book is something I'm working on, and it's going to
Good.
be speaking from a humble, transparent, and a vulnerable place. And I'm going to talk about it from a standpoint of being the abusive mom, because whether it's mental abuse, physical abuse, or whatever, it's still abuse that they deal with, and we as a society don't talk about that either. And I said, I'm not gonna let the devil have my child. They can put me on the cross, you can crucify me, because I even dealt with when I had my awakening, like, oh my God, the things I did, I didn't even know, like, the importance of us becoming whole before we become mothers, before we become wives. And I'm just telling people, we got to be ourselves. That's what we dealing with, this society not talking about. It's us being and knowing who we are and living in it without no fear, doubt, and insecurity. And that fear, doubt, and insecurity is eating us alive, and nobody's talking about
Right. That's very true. Very,
it.
very true.
So thank you again for being a guest
Thank
on
you.
Transparent Table Talk. Follow Bougiewild, because we are having these conversations, and Bougiewild is a movement. It's a can't be box, free to be me movement, in which I offer empowerment and things like that. Just talking about my life and just sharing with people my revelation. And when I woke up and said, all that is God is good, I'm addicted to the good. I had to brainwash myself. For real. It's a practice. It is every
Yeah.
day,
Well,
every
thank you for
moment.
having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. You enjoy your evening.
You too. Bye, Yolanda.
Bye bye.
my energy. I'm real with myself, I don't conform to society. I'm free to be me. It's the only way for me to stay true to my identity. I'm free to be me. I'm a person of integrity.